Could the 49ers trade for Raiders wide receiver Davante Adams? John Lynch was a guest on KNBR earlier today, and he addressed those rumors, plus some best bets for you as the Niners prepare to take on the Arizona Cardinals. We'll get to all of it and more on today's Gold Standard podcast, brought to you by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino. What is good, everybody? Welcome to another Gold Standard podcast on the Gold Standard and the Fans First Sports Network. I am Rob Stats Guerrera, flying solo today because Michelle Majuk's birthday was Wednesday, and she's having a little celebratory weekend, so she is off today. You are stuck with me, but don't worry, I still got you covered. We're still going to do best bets. We'll still preview the Cardinals game as well. But first, we have to talk about John Lynch, who was a guest on KNBR earlier today, and he addressed the Devonte Adams rumors. Now, I will play that audio for you in a second, but I became aware of this because I saw a tweet on X from KNBR. Here is the actual tweet from KNBR. I put it up on the screen. It says, John Lynch says, quote, never say never to the 49ers going after Devonte Adams. Quote, Devonte is a hell of a player. One thing we've shown is we're always looking. We're never afraid to see what's out there. We're never afraid to pull the trigger. Now, I saw that, and my first reaction was, whoa, John Lynch, what are you doing? Why would you ever say that publicly? It serves you no good to say that publicly, right? If you are going after him, it tells everybody that you're potentially interested. If you're not going after him, it may make everybody else on the roster go, what the hell? We don't need Davante Adams. So I was like, damn, that is a surprising quote from John Lynch. So I went online. I decided, let me see if I can hear the actual answer from John Lynch. Let me play for you what John Lynch actually said when he was a guest on KNBR.
We like our group, and Devonte is a hell of a player. One thing we've shown is that we're always looking. We're never afraid to look and see what's out there. We're never afraid to pull the trigger. But I think coming in this year, we feel like our roster's in a pretty good spot. We have endured some injuries, but we'll never say never. And if someone can, it's got to work. It's got to work for both sides, but it's got to work for us. And I won't comment on any specific player, but right now we like where our roster's at.
That is a completely different answer from what was posted in this tweet. Completely different. And, a lot of times players and athletes and people in the sports media will complain about being taken out of context. Oh, this was taken out of context. Anytime they say something controversial, that's what they always say, right? In this case, that's exactly what KNBR did to John Lynch with this tweet. They completely took him out of context. You omitted, first of all, he said at the beginning and the end of the answer that they're satisfied with the roster. That's a huge part of the answer that they just left out of this tweet. It completely mischaracterizes what John Lynch said. John Lynch had the perfect answer to, are you going to trade for Devonte Adams or are you interested in Devonte Adams? Hey, we like our team. We'll never say never, but we like our team. That's the answer of someone that, number one, is not interested in Devonte Adams, and number two, doesn't even want to entertain it, really. I mean, he pretty much dismissed it. It's all but a dismissal. And to not have any of that included in that tweet is crazy. I know a lot of people have been talking about this and asking about this. Aside from the fact that you have to twist yourself into a pretzel salary cap-wise to pull it off, I'm not even sure it makes you that much better in order to do it, and you'd have to give up assets for it. So to me, it never made any sense. But I'm really surprised at KNBR, and if I were John Lynch, I would tell KNBR, you need to tweet something. You need to fix that, because that is not what I said. That is not the spirit of what I said. So that's a classic example of, like, sometimes you see things printed or like text on a screen somewhere, and you get one impression of a meaning behind them. And then when you hear the same comments or the comments plus extra, you come across a totally different meaning. And that's exactly what happened here. So John Lynch on KNBR did not leave the door open very wide to a Devonte trade at all. So let's just pump the brakes. If you see that on Twitter and you get excited or whatever, just please listen to the whole thing, or hopefully you watch this show and you've heard the whole thing. When you hear the whole thing, I think you'll come away, I should say, with a very, very different feeling on John Lynch and what he said there. So I'm surprised the KNBR did that because, they don't want to create controversy for John Lynch. They don't want to do anything or tweet anything that puts pressure on him or any pressure on the team whatsoever. Those interviews are very soft interviews, because it's a kind of a partnership there. KNBR is the flagship of the 49ers. So I was surprised to see that from them, but that's why you watch this show and that's why you subscribe to this podcast, and hopefully you subscribe to the YouTube channel because you get the full story. You don't have time to go listen to the whole John Lynch interview. You come here, I have the audio right there for you, and you get on with your real life. So glad we can provide that service for all of you. If you have any questions or comments, or you think I'm crazy, by the way, throw them in the chat. I'd love to get to them about Davante Adams or anything really. There is a game coming up on Sunday. Imagine that. And I know on Friday with Michelle, we usually do best bets. We've actually been pretty good this year with best bets. We were pretty accurate last week. Number one, I told you to take an interception by Fred Warner. You're welcome. He nailed it. That was almost plus 800 on that. So I'm going to pat myself on the back a little bit. Let me scroll back in my notes here, and we can take a look at what else did we have? Jauan Jennings, over 48.5 receiving yards. Ding, nailed that. Brock Purdy, over 234.5 passing yards. Ding, nailed that. I had Jordan Mason, over 19.5 carries. And the other two I mentioned. Okay, so yeah, we're doing pretty good this year with our bets, honestly. We're doing pretty good. And I've got a few more. Now, I'm going to just tell you, because Michelle is not here, I felt like I had to give you a few more, right? Because usually I only do like 3 or 4. So I've got more than that. I'm not 100% confident on all of them. I don't have my normal level of confidence on all of them, but I still think they're pretty good. I still think they're pretty safe for the most part. Obviously, you're not going to hit all of them unless I just have the craziest week ever. But I think if you play your cards right and you place your money properly, I think you could walk away a winner from the week. And that's really all you can ask, right? You make more than you lose on a given Sunday. That's all you can ask. Nobody ever went broke taking a profit. Heineman on Twitch, shout out to the Twitch fam, says, my best bet over 49.5 points. Interesting. I could see it. The Cardinals defense is terrible. There was a tweet from Shio Kapadia, who is a podcaster for, I believe it's Spotify or The Ringer, one of those. I can't remember which. And he pointed out that 3 of the 10 worst defensive games by DVOA this year, or EPA, I should say, are from the Cardinals. Like, that's how bad their defense has been. Washington went up and down the field on them last week. Jaden Daniels was dominating them. The 49ers have a much better offense than Washington. They should absolutely be able to do the same. If they avoid stupid plays and they avoid turnovers, there's no reason they can't do the exact same thing to the Arizona Cardinals. I found the tweet from Shield. A list of the 10 worst single-game defensive performances so far this season. Oh, I'm sorry. Based on success rate. I apologize. It was based on success rate, and the Cardinals own 3 of them. So there's opportunities there, for sure, for the Niners to whoop the Cardinals. And I think they will. I think the Cardinals will be able to move the ball a little bit on the Niners, especially if Fred Warner doesn't play. And it's certainly iffy, at least right now. We'll see if Fred practices today. He hasn't practiced on Wednesday or Thursday. But I think the Cardinals will be able to move the ball, but I don't think they're going to be able to move it enough. And I don't think they're going to be able to score enough touchdowns to keep up with the 49ers, who legitimately, I believe this is a week where they might not punt, period. It might be a week where every touchdown ends with, or every possession ends with, either a field goal or a touchdown, to be honest with you. That's how bad the Cardinals defense is. So I'm just saying, I think that's potentially where we are. So that bet of 49.5 that you have, Hyman, the over, that could be. Dave 184 Infantry, YouTube channel member. Appreciate that, Dave. If you want to become a YouTube channel member, it's less than $3 a month. You get priority comment response, custom emojis, membership badges. Dave asks, late to the show, is Dallas still the front runner for Adams, or are the Saints going to get him? Well, it's interesting that you ask that, because just before I hit record, we got a little Devonte Adams, I don't know if you want to call it news. I don't know what you want to call it, but he apparently posted a picture of Edgar Allan Poe on his Instagram. And of course, if you know who Edgar Allan Poe is, you know one of the most famous things that he wrote was a story called The Raven. So he's obviously from Baltimore. Poe was. That kind of says maybe at least the Ravens are in the running, or maybe the Ravens are a favorite of Davante Adams, or maybe the deal is done and hasn't been announced yet. I don't know, but Davante Adams posted a picture of Edgar Allan Poe on his Instagram, and take that for whatever it's worth. That's where we are in this story. We're in the social media searching, interpreting news cycle, and we know what that's like going through all the Brandon Ayuk stuff this offseason. So Davante Adams posted that picture on his Instagram, so I guess keep the Ravens in mind, or maybe it's done. Like I said, I don't know, but that's the update with Davante Adams. But I appreciate the question. Please keep them coming. Dave says, love stats. Still miss Levin yesterday. Mimosa today. Keep it up, stats. Yeah, I miss my people. Not going to lie. To be fully transparent, Levin did offer to do a show late Wednesday night, but I was cooked, frankly. I've been sort of wiped out, and it was going to be like 10:30, 11 o'clock before we recorded. So unfortunately, I couldn't make it work this week, but they'll be back next week. So don't worry. Everybody will be back in the pool next week. Showmatic, YouTube channel member, says, hi, Rob. I'm brewing some Pete's coffee. Hype for the game. First of all, I do drink Pete's coffee. I enjoy it very much. I'm a huge coffee guy. I'm not exclusively Pete's coffee. I'll pretty much drink any coffee you put in front of me that's not Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks. But good for you. Enjoy the coffee. Hype for the game. I am as well. And it's kind of a big game for a few different reasons for the 49ers. First of all, obviously, it's a division game. And like Nick Bosa said this week, division games count twice. They know it's big, but it's also the first of two division games in 8 days for the 49ers, because they have the Cardinals this week, and then they go to Seattle on Thursday for Thursday Night Football. Seattle's obviously the division leader right now. So this is a massive, massive 8-day stretch for the 49ers. And Kyle Shanahan's got to do some juggling, because there's a lot of guys that are day-to-day, a ton of guys that are day-to-day, frankly. And I'm sure it's the kind of situation where a lot of them probably would be good enough to go on Sunday. But are they good enough to go on Sunday and then play a game a few days later on a short week on Thursday? And I would imagine no, just given the state of the season and the injuries and all that stuff, like it's one or the other, you feel like, right? So if you're Kyle Shanahan, you're like, well, what do I do? Do I play the guys against the weaker opponent on Sunday and then have them have the week off and like the long bye and rest them up? Or do I play them? Do I sit them against Arizona and have them for the better team, the better opponent, the more difficult game, essentially on the road against a better team on Thursday in Seattle? And I don't know the answer to that, honestly. I mean, maybe the medical status will sort of make the decision for him, so he won't be tricky, but I'm sure these guys want to play. And if it's up to him, that's a tough decision. I don't know what I would do, honestly. What would you do? Would you play everybody? Would you sit everybody? Would you play Fred but sit Kittle? I don't know what I would do, honestly. And obviously it's more than just them. That would be easier if it was just them, but it's more than that. You know, Jacob Cowing is on the injury report. Chris Conley, Yetur Gross-Matos didn't practice yesterday. Demetrius Flanagan-Foles. D. Winter is limited, but they've been trying to get him in the lineup. Talanoa Hufanga maybe could come back, but they thought he was going to play last week. Jordan Elliott's got a knee. He was limited. Kevin Givens. So there's holes on that defensive line. I don't know what I would do. It's a very tricky situation. And maybe you sit everybody and you lean on Brock and you're like, dude, we need you to score. We need 40 from you this week. 35-40, got to have it. Is it fair? No. But sometimes that's the way it is in the NFL. That's life. And when you're a quarterback that we all think Brock Purdy is, you know, then you're going to say that you're worth a $60 million a year contract. There are going to be games when you just have to get leaned on. Those are the facts of the situation. It is not fair, but it is life. And we'll see what Kyle decides to do. I'm just seeing an article from Eric Williams from Fox Sports about Brock Purdy, kind of linking him up with Tom Brady. That's interesting. I don't know what it says. I haven't had a chance to read it. If anybody has read it, let me know. But, I'm kind of fascinated because Brady's going to be on the call on Sunday, and I really want to hear what he says about Brock Purdy. Now, I like to listen to the broadcasts and get nuggets from what they say in their production meetings, but it's a little bit different with Brady because he has a stake in the Raiders. And because of that, he doesn't get the same access to the players and coaches that every other broadcast crew member gets. So he might not have a lot of juicy nuggets. I don't know. Maybe he'll call Brock Purdy himself. Who knows? But he may not have the same amount of stuff that other people have, but I'll still just be very interested to hear Brady sort of diagnose how Brock does on the field, how he operates the offense, his throws, all that kind of stuff. Because I think we're going to have some interesting comments from Tom. I really do. Sway says best bets today. Yep, don't worry. We're still going to do best bets, Sway. I promise. I just wanted to do sort of like a preview here. And best bets just for this game, by the way, not for the week in general. Dave 184 Infantry says, do we need 150 yards and Ayuk from two touchdowns? No, not necessarily. We don't necessarily need that. I'm sure we would take it. Of course we would take it. You might get that from Jauan Jennings. I'm just saying. But you don't need that, and if that's what you demand out of Brandon Ayuk every week, you're going to be disappointed. You're going to be cranky. Like, that's just not realistic. He wasn't doing that before he got paid. He's not going to do it after. Like, that's not the way the offense works. He might have a couple weeks where he goes over 100 yards, but he's going to have a lot of weeks, where he catches one or two passes like last week. You got to adjust the focus of your anger, I think. The key thing is the Niners win the games. That's the key thing. And so far, well, at least last week, I should say, they have. Antonio, YouTube channel member, shout out to you, Antonio, says, how do you feel about Jordan Mason over 10.5 receiving yards? Well, funny you should say that. And I will get to that in 1 second, Antonio, but I just saw this comment really quick. John 9 or 8, Ayuk is a bum, and I believe Debo and Jennings will eat. This is exactly who Brandon Ayuk was last year, all right? It's the same. It's the same. Is he getting a few targets less? Maybe, but it's not like Brandon Ayuk was putting up 100 yards every week last year. He wasn't. Don't get mad at Brandon Ayuk. Like, just because the guy got paid and got money, you're mad at him. Like, stop. He's fine, okay? It'll be fine with Brandon Ayuk. We've played 4 games, all right? Relax. It's going to be fine. Hit a lot of games last year. 4 catches, 58 yards. 3 catches, 55 yards. 2 catches against Seattle, 50 yards in a game the Niners won 31-13, just like they won last week, pretty much. 5 catches, 46 yards. 3 catches, 37 yards against Arizona in week 14. 3 catches, 25 yards against the Rams. Like, let's not forget, we have seen this from Brandon Ayuk before. He's not a bum just because he wanted to get paid what he deserves. I don't like the way we vilify players. The team could have paid him that money anytime they wanted to. They could have offered him that contract in January. They didn't, okay? So before we turn Brandon Ayuk into a villain, let's hold the team equally as responsible, okay? That's all I'm saying. And yeah, I know I'm pro player. I'm happily pro player, and I will forever be pro player. Forever. The owners don't do anything. All they got to do is write a check, and half of them didn't even make the money themselves. They inherited it from mommy and daddy, okay? That's all the owners got to do. Write the checks and sit back and watch the money roll in. Even if the team sucks, the money rolls in. The players are the ones out there sacrificing their body, sacrificing their brains, putting their potential lives at risk or their well-being at risk every single snap of every single game. God forbid they want to get paid. So I'm always pro player. So don't come at me with that. Brandon Ayuk is a bum. You would never have said that last year. Nobody would have said that last year. But this year, because he got paid and held out, he's a bum. I don't agree. All right. Little departure there, but that comment got me riled up. Thank you, John 9 or 8. I always like the comments. Let's talk about some best bets. As Antonio asked, how do you feel about Jordan Mason over 10.5 receiving yards? So I have a different number, and this is something that you have to look for. I use BetUS, so that's the number that I'm going to go with. And according to BetUS, the receiving yards for Jordan Mason is at, it's 10.5 now. Ooh, it went down since I did a little research. Very nice, Antonio. Appreciate that. 10.5 receiving yards for Jordan Mason. I love it. I saw that, and that is the first thing that I wrote down in my notes. 10.5 receiving yards for Jordan Mason. He could get that on one play. He could get that on one catch, and I am such a sucker for those kind of bets where it's like, wait, I only need one good thing to happen? Yes, please. So give me Jordan Mason over 10.5. Now, the number is not ideal, right? It's minus 122. So if you don't know, what that means is in order to win $100, you have to bet $122. So that's not my favorite number, but I just think it's so likely. And we're starting to see Brock Purdy trust Jordan Mason more as a check down option. He started to trust him more the last 2 weeks. He didn't early on, but the last 2 weeks he started. And don't forget, he checked it down to Mason for what would and should have been a big touchdown last week. It got called back on a bogus holding penalty on George Kittle. But that was like a long touchdown play that got nullified. So I think that it shows that Brock is starting to trust Jordan Mason a little more in the pass game. We know the opportunities could be there in the offense because we saw how much they checked it down to CMC. So there could be chances there. 10.5 receiving yards. You could get that on one play, a little screen play. You could get that on 2 plays in 4 quarters. I'm doing it. I feel super confident. In fact, that's my single best bet this week is Jordan Mason, 10.5 receiving yards. Take the over on that one. I just feel very, very confident in that. And keep an eye on that going forward, too, because I think it may take them a little while to adjust to Brock actually chucking the ball to Jordan Mason. So you may be able to steal a couple of easy wins before they really start ratcheting the number up. So I highly recommend you place that bet, and please place it with BetUS. You can receive 150% on your first deposit and 125% on your second and third deposit, up to $2,000. All you got to do is use code YouTube150. Again, 150% on your first deposit, 125% on your second and third deposits with BetUS. They sponsor the show. They have easy and fast withdrawals, live wagering on all major games, and the best betting variety in the business. It's where I go to make my bets. It's where you should go to make your bets. We appreciate them sponsoring the show. So please check it out with BetUS. All right, let's continue more of the best bets. I had the Mason receiving number. I also take the Mason rushing number over. It's 85.5 right now is the Jordan Mason rushing number. He's been over 100 yards in 3 out of the 4 games this season. It's actually I just double checked. Sorry, it's going up to 86.5. I don't care. He's getting 100 yards. So if it's 85, 86, 90, 95, I don't care. He's going to get 100 yards. The Cardinals defense stinks. The Niners are a run-first football team. They want to attack with the run, and if it works, they will stick with it. He's going to hit this number. 85.5, 86.5 is not good enough. Please take the over because that's the safest thing for the 49ers. And they know when they play these teams, all they got to do is not turn it over. They're so much more talented that all they got to do is not turn it over. They're going to win the game. The safest thing to do is hand the ball off, pound it up the middle. Jordan Mason is going to get more than 86.5 yards. The Cardinals have allowed the 7th most rushing yards in the entire NFL. And keep in mind, it's 7th most in a game where they blew out the Rams and the Rams had to pass to get back into the game. And the Cardinals have still given up the 7th most. Imagine if the Rams were able to run the ball more in that game. Arizona would be giving up even more. So that's kind of like the sneaky hidden yardage that you don't always see on first glance. So give me Jordan Mason over 86.5 rushing yards. If the Niners have a lead, he'll get it late. Maybe you have to sweat this one out a little bit where he doesn't gain most of it till like later in the game. But I'm extremely, extremely confident he's going over that mark for sure. All right, I'll get to some more best bets in a minute, but I want to address this super chat. Elliot Mata, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. Says, are you convinced Brock is our franchise quarterback yet? You were on the fence and had a 2-year thing. Correct. I still have a 2-year thing. We're not at the end of the second year. I will say I'm definitely leaning way closer to the franchise quarterback label than ever before. I think Brock has taken his game to a much higher level this year. I think he looks better. I think he's throwing the ball deeper down the field. I think he's managing the game better. Not perfectly, but he's managing the game much better. He's using his legs more. He's protecting himself when he does use his legs. To me, he's deciding much quicker when to run. Last year, he would do it a couple of times, but he would drop back and he would look and look and look and run around and extend the play. And then only as a last resort, he would take off and run. This year, I feel like he drops back, the coverages I think he's seeing are different, so he's able to rule out certain things faster. I think that may be part of it, but he's dropping back this year. Look, gone. It's not just the break glass in case of emergency. It's like a viable option for him in his. It's become part of his progression. So I love that Brock is doing that. He's throwing the ball deep down the field. He's throwing the ball into tighter coverage, more accurately. I think he's absolutely better this year than he was last year, just like he was better last year than he was in 2022. He's improved every year. So I'm not there yet because we still got a long way to go this year, and 2 years is 2 years. That's my thing. But it's certainly closer than ever, Elliot. I'll say that. 100% closer than ever. Dave184 says, oh, I apologize. I clicked on the wrong comment, but I'll answer this one since I clicked on it. Dave184 Infantry, what is the Purdy projection for rushing yards? Well, allow me to go and check that out. They actually don't have one up here right now for rushing yards for Brock Purdy. That is tricky because they'll always put it at like 10. And there are some games where he doesn't get that. And then there are some games where he gets it with one scramble. So that would make me a little bit nervous. James says, Jordan Mason parlay over the rushing yards, over the receiving orders, anytime touchdown. I'm assuming you meant yards there. Over the rushing yards is 86.5. I would do that. Over the receiving yards, 10.5. I would do that. Anytime touchdown. That's pretty good. That's not a bad parlay. You're kind of going all in on Jordan Mason, but I could see the logic there, James. I absolutely could see the logic. Okay, so I did the Jordan Mason. Oh, one other Jordan Mason bet that I liked because the rushing yards is minus 114. So again, to win $100, you have to bet 114. That's not great. If you want to do a parlay, you could take Mason 85 rushing yards or more and Niners win, and that's at plus 110. So that means if you bet $100, you win $110. So if you're confident the Niners are going to win, which I am, and you're confident he's going to go over the 85 or 86 rushing yards, just take the parlay because it's just better. You get a better number. You get more money for your bet. So that's definitely one that I would do. In true Michelle Majuk fashion, I did want to take at least one bet involving the other team because, you know, the money's green regardless of who you bet on. So the next one I want to tell you about is Marvin Harrison Jr. over 54.5 receiving yards. We have seen in this with this defense, other wide receivers, including the number one option, go off for big games. We have seen it this year. We have seen it last year. The Niners really don't necessarily focus on just eliminating one guy altogether out of the game plan. Even in games where the 49ers have blown people out, other receivers have had a good day. This isn't even a particularly good day for Marvin Harrison Jr., right? 60 yards is 55 yards is not like, oh my God, it would be a tremendous day. Number seems kind of low for me. I think Kyler's going to target him. I think he's going to target him early. Harrison's touchdowns, I believe all of them this year have come in the first quarter, which is sort of weird. But he's the clear number one. He's hit this over in 2 of the past 3 weeks. Really, after his disastrous week 1, he's been fine. I love this bet. I don't want to see Marvin Harrison do anything good, of course, but I think he's going to hit this bet. I really do. And like I said, the money is green, right? The money is green. And it's not like you're betting him to go 120. It's not like, well, you have to sacrifice your fandom in order to win your bet. I don't like making bets like that. I don't like making bets where it's almost like a hedge, right? Where it's like, well, the Niners might lose, but at least I'll win some money. Like, I want to make my bets where I could have full rooting interest in the Niners. And this one doesn't. I mean, Marvin Harrison could have 60 yards in the game and the Cardinals could get shut out. So it doesn't affect anything. But I'm surprised that the number is so low, frankly, for Marvin Harrison. I would think it would be more, especially because the Niners they won't just say, Deommodore Lenoir, you're on Marvin Harrison, follow him wherever he goes, or Mooney Ward, follow him wherever he goes. They rarely do that. So even if Lenoir is shutting him down, he'll still have opportunities against Mooney Ward. So I think he's going to hit this number. I feel pretty confident he's going to hit the number. And as Dave184 Infantry points out, the third down defense will certainly allow Marvin Harrison to get some opportunities. Do I have any other Cardinals bets? Oh, I do. Since we're talking about it, I did have another Cardinals bet. Now, this is one that I'm not as confident in, but like I said, with Michelle on vacation, I try to come up with a few more for you because I want the show to be, relatively long. And it's another receiving yardage bet for the opponent. And I'm going to go Trey McBride, the Cardinals tight end. I'm taking over 44.5 receiving yards. He is really good. He's the clear number 2 option behind Harrison. And if Fred doesn't play, who do they have that's going to cover this guy? Like, I don't feel confident in anybody to stop Trey McBride. So, and even if Fred plays, will he be at 100%? I don't know. But I feel like, again, Harrison and McBride are the 2 main targets for the Cardinals. And it would not require a superhuman performance by any stretch of the imagination, even if both guys were to hit the over in this one. So I will take the Trey McBride over 44.5 receiving yards. Again, it's minus 118. So don't love it still, but I'm pretty confident it's going to happen. So if I feel like I'm pretty confident a bet is going to happen, even if I don't have it at the best number, I'm still going to take it. Those, I believe, yes, those were the only 2 Cardinals bets that I had, but I think they're pretty good. And again, it's the money's green, so I'll bet on a couple of things with the 49ers opponent, because let's be honest, we know the 49ers weaknesses, right? Like, we know the vulnerable spots on this team. Why not at least take advantage of those opportunities, or take advantage of having that knowledge and maybe make some money on it? So I will take that. Okay. Couple other ones that I like. Jordan Mason anytime touchdown score is plus 190. That's like doubling your money, essentially, if Jauan Jennings scores a touchdown. How could you not take this if you're a 49ers fan? First of all, he's having a breakout year, number 1. Second of all, when they get down to the red zone, he's the guy that sees the ball a lot of the times because Debo's getting double covered. Ayuk's getting attention. Kittle oftentimes is double covered. Defenses, as good as Jauan Jennings has been, I still think they look at it and say, our best chance to stop the 49ers is to make Jauan Jennings beat us. We don't want to test Debo Samuel. We don't want to test Brandon Ayuk or George Kittle. We'll have to live with Jauan Jennings beating us. And to Jauan's credit, for this year, he's been beating everybody, frankly. But in terms of this bet, that's why I think it's a great bet. I absolutely love it. Plus 190. Jauan's good at contested catches anyway. Yes, 100% yes. So to me, that seemed like easy money. I will take Jauan Jennings to get the touchdown. Might be his only catch, even if it's his only catch of the game, right? I feel like, third down, red zone situations, they throw it to 15. With the Super Bowl on the line last year in overtime on third down, they threw it to Jauan Jennings. They trust him, and Brock trusts him. And when the windows are condensed, when you get down into the red zone, a lot of times you're throwing it to the guy you trust, even if he's not necessarily 100% wide open. So I loved Jauan Jennings anytime touchdown scorer at plus 190. Now we'll get to some of the bets that I'm not necessarily sure I would touch, but with Michelle off, I just wanted to kind of throw them on. These are more like 50-50 kind of. That's my feeling on them. Like, yeah, coin flip could happen, could not happen. But some of the numbers are interesting, so I thought I would present it to you. Bet at your own peril. Let me just say that. How about Isaac Guerendo, anytime touchdown score? Now, obviously, you get the kick returns. Who knows if he'll actually do it, but that is an area where he could potentially touch the ball. Hopefully, he's still doing it after fumbling. Or what if he vultures one? That's the scenario I see that's most likely. He vultures one from Jordan Mason. Jordan Mason busts a big run, or they've been running Mason, 2, 3, 4 times in a row, and he just needs that 1 or 2 quick breather, 1 or 2 play breather. In comes Isaac Guerendo from like the 3-yard line. They run it up the gut. Boom, touchdown. Maybe he doesn't get another carry the rest of the game, But hey, for this bet, it still counts, right? I just feel like this might be a game where Guerendo can vulture one, especially because the Niners know Jordan Mason's been getting a ton of carries. They know they don't totally love the depth behind him. Maybe they want to rest him a little more than in times past. I think the vulture may fly over Levi's this week. Give me Isaac Guerendo anytime touchdown. The number, by the way, is plus 550. 550. And this is a backup running back we're talking about, right? It's not like you need 6 guys to get injured for him to come in. Backup running back at plus 550, you bet $100, you win $550. I almost have to do it. And I've had some luck with those long bets. Michelle and I both have had some luck with those like plus 500, plus 600 bets this year. Hell, we saw it. We saw it in week 1. All of a sudden, Christian McCaffrey doesn't play. Boom, Jordan Mason comes in, anytime touchdown scorer. Yay, bang, in the game. So I love the Isaac Guerrero. I'm actually talking myself into liking it even more now, believe it or not. So that's definitely one. Now that I sort of go through it and talk it out, that I feel pretty good about, believe it or not. And the next one is Kyle Juszczyk, anytime touchdown scorer. As long as Christian McCaffrey is out, Kyle Juszczyk's going to be on the field more than normal. He's the third down back when Christian McCaffrey is out. Whether you agree with it or not, the reality is that's what he is. They put him in on third down. They use him in the red zone, and they use him on scramble drills. He's very good at sort of unsticking from players and getting open on scramble drills. Brock has gone to him repeatedly in those situations. Brock also had a touchdown pass to Juice on a scramble drill last week that was called back on a stupid penalty by the officials. So Juice anytime touchdown scorer at plus 600. So even better odds than Guerrero. If you think the Guerrero bet is too unlikely, too rich for your blood, okay, that's fine. But Juice is a starter, right? He doesn't need anybody to get hurt. He didn't need to vulture anything from anybody. He's a viable target there in the red zone. He's never going to be double covered ever. Plus 600. What do you think? I think it's good. I think it's worth you throwing down $5-10. Throw down $10, you win 60 if it hits. That's not nothing, man. That'll get you through a week, a winner, more than likely. Heineman says Guerrero anytime fumble. That's mean, but funny, so I'll allow it. And I had one more for you here. And this one we can talk about a little bit. The last best bet I want to get to is 49ers team field goals. So this is all throughout the game. The over-under is 1.5. So you got to get 2. Obviously, there's no such thing as a half field goal. I think that that's easy money, no matter what kind of game script it is. Let's say the 49ers blow them out, right? I think what you're going to see is Niners have even like a non-successful drive. They're going to be able to flip field position. They're going to be able to get in position for a field goal, especially early in the game. Because if it's early and it's fourth down in field goal range, Kyle ain't going for it. Because just like we saw against the Patriots last week, he's going to think, man, we're better than this team. I'm not potentially risking going for it on fourth down and not getting it and opening the door for them to do anything. I'm taking points. As long as we end every drive with points, Kyle's thinking, I'm not going to lose this game. So that's going to give Jake Moody more opportunities. And then if they're kicking the Cardinals' ass at the end of the game, but still moving the ball, Kyle's just going to go for the field goal. He's not going to be aggressive or anything like that. His play calling, he'll probably won't even call like, he'll take his foot off the gas, so to speak, if they're blowing him out. So what does that mean? That means Jake Moody's going to get the chance to kick field goals. So what I think the scenario for this game is going to be is a Jake Moody field goal early and a Jake Moody field goal late, at least. And that's enough to get you the win. And the number is not in my notes. Well, that's a terrible job by me. Let me look it up really quick. But I think that's how it's going to work for the 49ers is, hey, field goal early, field goal late. Yay, Jake Moody. Some of those will probably be short too, right? So it's not a situation where you got to bet on him to make like a 55-yard field goal. There'll be short field goals if the Niners red zone woes continue. Why can't I find? Of course, I can't find this bet now. Sorry about that, everybody. There you go. It's minus 114 is the number. Sorry about that. Minus 114. But again, I think it's a high probability of happening. So, and if it's a close game, by the way, they may kick a field goal late too. Like, I don't think it's going to be close, but if it is, like that doesn't eliminate your chances of winning the bet. So that was my thinking on that one. Dave 184 Infantry says Niners are 7.5 point favorites. Kyle loves to talk about that. It's actually down to 7 now, believe it or not, according to the website. 7 point favorites for the 49ers. Nonetheless, I still feel good about that. Again, the offense is going to kick ass. a little bit. So I would take the Niners. I didn't put that on my list of best bets, but that's how I feel about that. Wedge Antilli says over under Brandon Ayuk drops. Again, mean but funny. If the funny outweighs the mean, I'll allow it. I'll throw it on the screen. I used to work with somebody at ESPN who used to say that. We used to joke and say things like, should we do this on the show? Could we do this on the show? And one of our litmus tests was, does the funny outweigh the mean? And if it did, that was the first hurdle that it had to clear. Appreciate all the comments. Thank you, everybody. Again, I would prefer to have a co-host, and so not having one the past couple of days is not my ideal scenario. But look, people have vacations, people have stuff that goes on. It's totally fine. I want to point out before we go, and I'll recap the bets in a minute. I talked with Johnny Venerable, who covers the Arizona Cardinals for the PHNX podcast for the crossover this week. He was the guest, Johnny Venerable. That interview is up on YouTube now for our Good as Gold YouTube channel members. If you're not a Good as Gold YouTube channel member, that's okay, but it's going to come out a little bit later today. I believe I set it for 1:30 Pacific time, I want to say. So that'll be up on the YouTube channel. The podcast comes out at midnight tonight. So the audio podcast of that will be available midnight tonight, but you should definitely go and check it out. He breaks down a lot of the Cardinals' defensive issues. He breaks down what the hell is going on with Kyler Murray and how does he look really good one game and really terrible the next game. He actually said, believe it or not, like there's a very realistic chance that Kyler is off the Cardinals next year if things go a certain way. So definitely a really cool interview. Please go and check that out. Like and subscribe to the channel as well. Wedge Antilli says, Rob, I'm willing to pinch hit and co-host if you ever need it. Well, first of all, Wedge, you have one of the best usernames ever. So that's definitely got you in the running. I appreciate that. Lee Ving says, what's the realistic trade? I'm assuming you're talking about for Davante Adams. Again, if you missed it, I'll play it again. John Lynch on KNBR when asked if the Niners would pursue Davante Adams.
We like our group, and Davante's a hell of a player. One thing we've shown is that we're always looking. We're never afraid to look and see what's out there. We're never afraid to pull the trigger. But I think coming in this year, we feel like our roster's in a pretty good spot. We have endured some injuries, but we'll never say never. And if someone can. It's got to work. It's got to work for both sides, but it's got to work for us. And, I won't comment on any specific player, but right now we like where our roster's at.
So that was John Lynch on KNBR. Doesn't sound like that's going to happen. I mentioned earlier that Devonte Adams posted a picture of Edgar Allan Poe on his Instagram. Apparently, he's also followed it up with a quote, believe nothing you hear and half of what you see. And apparently he's attributing that to Edgar Allan Poe. I don't know if Poe said that, but that would be the second Ravens sort of related thing that he posted on his Instagram. Who the hell knows if it's true or not? I have no idea. But the 49ers don't need Davante Adams. They don't. The offense is not the unit on this team that you need to be concerned about. All the red flags are on defense. All the 49ers red flags are on defense. So let's not, I know we like to always be involved in the cool trades, the big trades and all that stuff, but we don't need it. We really, really don't need Davante Adams. Even if Christian McCaffrey doesn't come back, George Kittle is enough. Deebo Samuel is enough. Brandon Ayuk is enough. Jordan Mason, good. How much better do we think Davante Adams realistically makes the 49ers? I don't think that much better. I really don't. And he's a guy that's kind of freaked out a little bit on the sidelines when he doesn't get his targets and his yards. How do you think he's going to react if that was happening in San Francisco? We see it with Brandon Ayuk, right? We know guys go entire games without really being targeted that much. Is that really the guy you want in San Francisco? Now, if this was before the 49ers signed BA and you wanted to talk about that trade, hell yeah. Absolutely hell yeah. But it's a different world now. It is a different world now. It's a different salary cap situation now. So, okay, more funny chats. Heineman says they already have a $30 million decoy. Again, funny outweighs the mean. You just signed Brandon Ayuk weeks ago. The salary cap is, you're going to twist your salary cap into a pretzel if you did that. So no, don't trade for Davante Adams just because you're mad Brandon Ayuk hasn't put up more yards. And by the way, after this 8 days, the 49ers could be sitting in first place in the NFC West. even without massive games to this point from Brandon Ayuk. So, like, I don't understand why people are so mad. As long as the team's winning, why get mad? It's not enough that they win. They have to win, and Brandon Ayuk has to put up 100 yards every week. Like, why do you care? It's not your money. Now, if they're losing, that's different. Of course, you need your more production from your stars. If they're losing, they're 2-2 right now. They could have a winning record after this week. They could be 4-2 in the 8 days. You know, if they also beat Seattle on Thursday. Breathe with me. Just deep breath. Wedge Antilles says, Rob, did you see what Juice said about Grant? Pretty funny. No. Can someone tell me, Wedge, if you saw actually what did he say? I didn't see it. I saw that Debo didn't answer one of Grant's questions. Not surprising. Like, Grant made a big deal of the Brandon Ayuk shorts thing. Obviously, Debo and Ayuk are friends. Like, it doesn't surprise me that Debo would be not wanting to answer Grant's question. I didn't see what Juice said about him. Okay, I don't know how to say this name. Oh, geez, that's tough. Vickershman? Apologize if I got that wrong. Says, well, they're losing. They were losing. They didn't lose last week. They look damn good against Minnesota. And you could argue they're a Ronnie Bell drop away from being 3-1. Or a Ronnie Bell drop and a Jake Moody missed field goal away from being 3-1. They're 2-2. They're right in the thick of it in the NFC. Everybody in the division lost last week. The Buccaneers, who had a better record than the 49ers, just lost to the Falcons on Thursday Night Football. The NFC has come back to the 49ers a little bit. So there's no reason to freak out right now. None. Wedge says, Kyle Juszczyk said about Grant, maybe we can keep Grant away from always hanging around our lockers while we're changing. That's a little weird. Not going to lie. I've never been this is a side thing, but like I know it's the Cincinnati Bengals have talked about like trying to get reporters out of the locker room because, you know, some guys have been on camera when they've been naked or partially naked, which does happen from time to time in a locker room, in all sports, not just football. I will say this. I've never been in a locker room or a clubhouse, but I have never been a naked guy in the locker room. Like when I would go to the gym or in school, like high school or whatever, like I was never, oh, it's a locker room. It's totally cool to walk around naked. That ain't me. I'm always, you know, bashful, shy, whatever you want to call it. But I certainly wouldn't be walking around, you know, uncovered, let's say, if there were reporters in the locker room. It's their right to do. It's their locker room. I'm not disparaging anybody. I'm just saying for me, nah, never been that guy. Someone is tagging me on something. Let me see. Okay, so the NFLPA, let me throw this up on the screen. Apparently, maybe this isn't just a Cincinnati Bengals thing. Maybe this is a NFLPA thing, and it looks like it is. I'm going to read this with you here. Let me try to make it a little bigger. The NFLPA put out a statement regarding the locker room media policy. Over the past 3 years, the NFLPA has tried to work with the NFL to move media interviews out of locker rooms. However, there has been little willingness to collaborate on a new solution. Players feel that locker room interviews invade their privacy and are uncomfortable. This isn't about limiting media access, but about respecting players' privacy and dignity. The NFL's current media policy is outdated. We, the NFLPA Executive Committee, urge the NFL to make immediate changes to foster a more respectful and safer workplace for all players. In the meantime, we encourage each player to ask for interviews outside the locker room during the week. Juice quote tweeted that and said, maybe we can keep Grant Cohn from always hanging around our lockers while we're changing. I wouldn't hang around somebody while they're changing. They're not going to want to talk to you while the junk is out, right? I mean, let's just be honest. Very few people are going to want to conduct an interview in that current state. So maybe just hang back. But again, I'm not in locker rooms. I'm certainly not in the 49ers locker room. I have no idea what Grant does or doesn't do. I'm not commenting on that aspect of it. But I know that the players really liked during COVID that the media didn't have the same access to the locker room that they usually do. And I think once that happened, like a lot of things with COVID, it was like, hey, we just did this. Why can't we keep doing it, right? Like the way people worked from home. So many people worked from home. And then a lot of workers were like, well, damn, I just did this job for a year or 2 years from home and everything was fine. Why can't I keep working from home? So I think that's sort of the same vibe with the players and wanting to change this policy. And look, players, especially today, I think they want a place to feel safe, for lack of a better term, and not like safe from physical harm, just where they can relax and let their guard down a little bit. I think that's really what it's about. Like the whole naked thing, like, yeah, that's part of it, I'm sure. I don't think that's the biggest part. Again, this is just my speculation. Clearly, the 5'10", 140-pound guy is not an athlete of any kind. So maybe I'm wrong, but I think really it's more a place where they just want to let their guard down a little bit. And it's like, hey, we did this during COVID. It was fine. Why are we going to go back to the way we used to do it just because that's the way we used to do it? And I don't know, what kind of negotiating power there is or who has to approve any of that, but I'm not in the locker room anyway, so it doesn't really affect me. I do think the coverage would be affected for what it's worth. Sometimes you're in the locker room, you hear things, you see things, and I know players don't like that, but just in terms of the coverage and stuff that gets out and doesn't get out, we'll get less stuff, less content, less everything if reporters are not allowed in the locker room as much as they are now. That's just a fact. Let me check the chat really quick. Bazzyman. Oh, this is a good point. Says, Grant's also been talking nonsense about completely sitting Juice and transitioning to 11 personnel like the Rams do. I did see that. That's Grant's opinion. I personally think they've been phasing Kyle Juszczyk out of the offense anyway. He was off the field for more snaps than he was on the field last year. Now, this year, I think it's skewed because they lost McCaffrey and they've been using him in a third down role. But the 49ers would also argue, hey, we like having Juice here because he can do that when necessary. He did return punts last week, which was stupid, but he did do it. And he did fine. He didn't mess it up, to his credit. But maybe that's part of the whole Juice Grant fuel. I don't know. But Grant just said on his live, he doesn't stare at asses. Good. Okay. Well, it's never boring with Grant Cohn, is it? All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the show. Please rate, review, and follow the Gold Standard Podcast Network. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Click the bell. We're live every single weekday and after every single 49ers game. If this is your first time checking out the show, usually I have a co-host. So, it's normally more of a back and forth conversation. I do appreciate all the chat and all the comments and everybody. Thank you. And thanks for, keeping my eye on some of the stuff that's going on. It's hard to keep an eye on during a show. But normally we do have a co-host. So if this is your first time, please give us a chance. So like and subscribe. I promise you, we will earn your time. We will make you a better, smarter 49er fan if you listen to our channel and our network and our podcast. So give us a shot, please, and thank you. Also, before we go, I just want to give another shout out to BetUS. Thank you for sponsoring this live stream. Once again, if you want to sign up for BetUS, use promo code YouTube150 to get 150% on your first deposit and 125% on your second and third deposit up to $2,000 with code YouTube150. Enjoy the game, everybody. Enjoy football. We will be live after the game. Make sure you join us for the Instant Reaction podcast. Go damn Niners. Enjoy your Friday. Enjoy your weekend.